The universe should be loud. Billions of stars, trillions of worlds, and yet nothing. No greeting, no warning, just silence. The Fermi Paradox asks why. The dark forest theory has the answer, because every civilization is hiding. And if they're not, they're already gone.
Now that the silence may be broken, newly discovered comet, larger than any in recorded history, is hurtling toward us. Its speed unnatural, its trajectory impossible, and its core, it's reflecting more than light. It's sending something back.
Signals buried in the tail. Patterns that match no known language and no known physics. Is it a message or a weapon? In the dark forest, you don't announce yourself unless you're ready to strike.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's another alien episode. Comets, asteroids, Fermi Paradox, all of it. Welcome to the dark side of the Fringe. I am, of course, Dr. Chicken. Find me at Bark and Cluck. And joined by the man, the myth, the legend, one who makes cowboy hats sexy again, and a big lover of Johnny Cash, apparently, Tony fucking G.
It is I, the 17-time Revolutionary Race Podcast champion, non-chill filled, quadruple distilled, your blend master, sermons himself, Tony fucking G, back again with alien talk. We getting extraterrestrial on your asses.
And the first time live in appearance, we've had him in,
yes,
yeah, live, first time live in the flesh, digital flesh, if you were, the one, the only, Bill K.O.E.
Folks, it is I, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man that makes the other podcast cower, the prince and potentate of the political parlance. And now, folks, I am here to dive into the extraterrestrial as well as we have already covered in previous time with Tony G. I'm also the master of the ethereal. So who better to have than one Phil K.O.E. You can, of course, find me not only here on planet Earth, but also out in the wide, wide universe in places like K.O.E. Nation on YouTube, out in the galaxy of Twitter called K.O.E. Nation on Twitter-X, depending on your opinion on Elon this week. I'm also orbiting Jupiter at K.O.E. Nation on Twitch, and I am also falling in to ton 618 K.O.E. Nation on all amazing YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, everywhere that good content can be found. And now here on what is now the most important conspiracy theory and alternative theory show in all of existence, Dark Side of the Fringe, folks. I am glad to be here, gentlemen. Yes, Bill K.O.E. with a hostile takeover of the conspiracy realm. Let's do it, gentlemen.
So there you go, folks. It is real. He does exist, and this is how he is on every show we do, live or recorded. It doesn't matter. Phil is Phil. With that, like, before we get into all the crazy shit, that's a good segue into the Fermi Paradox because of the smaller stars.
Yeah.
So different lifespans. Yeah.
I've got a very technical explanation, a quick summarization of the Fermi Paradox that we can just run this down if anyone listens not completely familiar with it. The Fermi Paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, asks, where is everybody, given the high probability of existence of extraterrestrial civilizations? This paradox highlights the discrepancy between the expected presence of alien civilizations and our lack of evidence for or contact with them. The vastness of the universe, estimated 100 to 400 billion stars in the Milky Way alone and over 100 billion galaxies in the observable universe, the potential for life is immense. Many scientists believe that the emergence of life on Earth was not a unique event and that life could have evolved on other planets with similar conditions. Assuming life is common, it's possible that civilizations could develop intelligence, technology, and a desire to communicate with others. But despite decades of searching, we found no conclusive evidence of ETs, civilizations, radio signals, optical signals, or other signs of technology.
So,
Where the fuck is everybody?
well,
where they at, bro?
there's a few things that have come out of this. Fucking a lot of things that have come out of this. One of the most fascinating ones to me, which I line up with most, is we're early. When you look at everything that we know, 90% of all stars that will ever exist haven't even formed yet. So that means intelligent life might not necessarily be rare. It's just mostly going to happen in the future. And maybe we're one of the more earlier forms.
Okay. Because, Chicken, this lines up very close to a theory that I have called firstborn of the universe theory. Why are we not seeing anybody? Now, if there is other life out in the universe, it would be highly unlikely that we would just so happen to be the firstborn species of the universe. But that likelihood is not zero. Okay, and that's what people. What I always notice is people want to dismiss that out of hand. Like, no, there has to be other aliens out there. There has to be a better civilization. No, there probably won't be for many, many millions of years. And then that means, in a strange way, it's actually going to be our descendants that are going to be, quote, the evil alien invaders that are going out conquering the galaxy. Okay, and so
maybe more than that. So, like, when you look at the science, red dwarf stars, which are the most common, can live for 10 trillion years. That's 700 times longer than the current age of the universe. So, like, you start thinking if solar systems surviving around a red dwarf that's not going to explode or change or do anything for 10 trillion years, you're gonna have a fuck ton of life. You're gonna have different scenarios than we're living in. And if life ever starts there, it's gonna be an absurd amount of life, you would think, throughout the entire galaxy. Like holy shit. Not just in the galaxy, the whole universe, but just in our galaxy, you have a bunch of like 10 trillion year old stars. Like, that's crazy to think about.
And like you said, these stars, they're so, like, we think that the universe is really old, but we're really
young,
a very long ways away from the heat death of the universe. Because it's something that people don't really quite realize, is that, yes, eventually the universe is going to die of old age. I one time, and this is a bit of an aside, but it's actually ties right into what we're talking about here. I one time read an SCP file called The End of All But Me. And it was an immortal.
I fucking love SCPs, man. They're so fun.
It was an immortal creature who thought it was going to beat out creation. And then at one point, he's alone on the Earth. Nothing's there. But then the sun expands and expands. And he gets onto a rock that can handle the heat. And he screams when he can, but no one's around to hear him. And then the sun contracts after a few million years. And it becomes bigger than the other stars, but only just. And then he begins to chart the stars. And then what starts to happen, because he's got nothing else to pass his time. And what happens is he starts to notice eventually, over enough time, rather than 3 stars being born for every one that dies, it eventually flips. And now there's 1 star that's born for every 3 that dies. And he eventually realizes that his fate will be to be completely alone in a darkness that goes on forever. And the only sign that the universe had once been filled with light is the star charts that he wrote on the dead Earth. Okay, and so the red dwarfs, so you can't see from other solar systems, but they will still be there.
So the entire thing that I find fascinating in your theorizing there, fellas, is most people, when they hear just how old the universe is, trillions of years,
13.6 billion, is that what we think?
I've heard like 4.6, 2.5, however, like, nobody fucking knows. Like, I don't mean to be so direct, but nobody really knows. We just got people guessing.
Even a high estimate, say 20 billion, which I think that's way beyond what is estimated. Oh shit, my dog.
That's a lot.
So,
that ain't nothing compared to 10 trillion.
Exactly.
That's what that's my point. Like, if you look at it from that, like even just Earth itself, what we hypothesize where we are, if we're putting it on a calendar, like, oh, okay, we're still pretty early in this whole Earth concept, right? The overall concept of time itself is something that we've constructed. So it's really not held
and
to
it's
a
relative
specific
to
state.
our
It's
life. Yeah,
exactly. So
Well, it's relative to our gravity.
exactly. So who's
To
to
be more
say?
precise.
Who's to say this is not like we're not enjoying the truly first Garden of Eden, if you will, like, and that's what we're experiencing now. You know what I mean? Like, we're like you guys are saying, we could be early on this whole crazy concept of life itself, and Earth is that Eden. So
a lot of
that's a
people want to
theory
shit on that because
Of
it's like
course
the
they do.
hubris of man to think that we're the first
Yes.
intelligent life, which I get
Well,
that. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to think that, but
It's
possible.
they're basing that off
It
of
could
all the
be.
billions
mean,
of years
alright.
that have come before this moment now. But who's to say the
Scientifically, I
billions
don't
of
think
years
it's
that came
possible that
before
we're the
right
first.
now weren't mere blips and seconds compared to what will be?
Mhm.
Because time is a concept.
Yeah.
And when you look at time as a concept, billions mean nothing to an eternity.
If you're living on Alpha Centauri, like or any of these other stars, time's going to seem different,
Yep.
Exactly.
and
Yes,
you're going to
yes.
see things different. Yeah.
Now, so two things to consider here, and I don't mean to bring. I'm going to bring this viewpoint in a little later, but I want you to also consider this now. Is that if, like, I'm right, chicken's right, like the idea that like we're the first, like we're
Right.
not even early, we're the first, because my theory is we are the firstborn of the universe.
Mhm.
Okay, first of all the Abrahamic religions would take a big spike of the football, like, oh yeah, who's made in God's image? Who's made in God's image? All right, we're gonna spread that through the universe. All right, but on the other hand, if we find out that there's like trillions of other civilizations, all that's gonna tell us, like, all right, guys, load up. We got some aliens to tell Christ is king.
And that's So
And
the
also,
Yeah,
how
hubris,
tasty
that's-
are
the
these
hubris
aliens?
goes both ways in this regard.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
So with the Fermi paradox, some other explanations, the Great Filter. Perhaps there's a barrier filter that prevents civilizations from becoming interstellar, and we've not
Yes.
yet passed this filter. Yeah. What do you think about that concept?
So with that,
go ahead. Megan.
I was gonna say, so it all depends on where you see that filter, right? Like, is it behind us or is it ahead of us?
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
Is it? Yeah. No, I agree. I get it. I get what you're saying.
Well, for it to be falsifiable, it has
if
to be behind us.
well, if it's behind us, life is rare.
Yep. Well,
And
here's
that's the other hypothesis, the rare earth hypothesis. Conditions that allow for the evolution of life might be so rare that it's unlikely to exist anywhere else.
now here's the thing. If it does, like, this is the part that people really don't like, is that if there is other life out there and the conditions are so rare, that other life's not just 2 or 3 solar systems over, it's like 20 or 30 galaxies over. And
Sure.
2 species might go their entire existence without ever having encountered each other. But now here's something I want. Have you guys ever
Which
seen
is
the movie Event Horizon?
likely that have happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, have you ever
could
seen?
could the Great Filter like have hit different galaxies and areas at different times to where, like, that? I think that's an obvious like thing to think about. Like, if the Milky Way galaxy has already been through the Great Filter and no new civilizations are likely to come, or it's behind us and life is rare, like, depending on, and then you look at a different galaxy and you're like, oh shit, like they're just kicking off and they got a whole like 10 trillion years ahead of them. Like, it could be different, like, depending on the galaxy, right?
Yeah. It could. Now, I want you to just absorb this because, let's be frank. Gravity is going to be affected in each galaxy differently because they're going to have different cores. Okay, but each core
In each galaxy's, each
is-
solar system, like, it's all
we
minute.
think the core is a black hole. We're not sure, but I want you to consider this. Have you guys ever seen the movie Event Horizon?
Yes.
Great movie. So the idea is you can't move in any kind of time from place to place. So what you want to do, and this is the hypothesis of Event Horizon and a couple other scientists, is you literally fold space, punch a hole through it, and then unfold it, and now you are on the other side. That's how you can actually get from place to place. Now, in the movie Event Horizon, when they punch that hole for a half second, they go through the dimension that we would call hell. And so they actually get heavily traumatized and freak out because of this. Now, I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I want you to think about this. What is the filter that would get out any major civilization and would just destroy them immediately? The moment you figure out how to move faster than light, you actually rip a hole in the fabric of space and cause a black hole, destroying your entire solar system.
Do you think that that's what's going on? Like, aren't they trying to create a black hole in Germany in that fucking weird goddamn
the Tetron Collider?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I actually trained with a guy who actually used to work there. Okay, when I used to go to the MMA gym, and he had really nice grappling pants, and so so I thought he was way better than he was, and I just like throwing this guy around. When we were done, we started talking, and he says, "Yes, I work on Tetron Collider," and I couldn't stop myself, and everybody kind of stopped working out to listen. It's like, so are you gonna blow up the world with that thing?
Yeah.
Okay, like, what are you doing over there? Trying to make a black hole? I was like, no, we are not working with sciences of that kind of danger. Like, so that you could tell he had the speech that he was supposed to give, like,
Yeah.
plebs like me.
Well, yeah. So that's my only problem is like we know so much about black holes at like a basic level, like
Yeah.
like it is like when you look into the center of a galaxy or a solar system, like or specifically a galaxy, you're supposed to have a black hole that's making that like vortex and spin. That's massive, obviously. That's huge. But like, what really is a black hole? Like, if we were to shoot like certain like particles at the speed of light on
Right.
Earth, and what would a black hole the size of a pen create? Oh shit, what was the Big Bang Theory supposed to be? I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like when you think of these spaces and these reactions and how they come from like the ballpoint of a pen size into everything you ever see, like would we even know like what like the God, I need to be smoking some fucking weed right now. Like, like trying to think about how the expanding universe would actually look to something that we shoot a particle at the speed of light in the Hadron Collider and like, and try to do this. And does it rip space time? And we just don't know because that little void in that little ball of space-time in that Hadron Collider, maybe it's contained in there and we just don't see it, and the time construct of that to us is 20 seconds, but to them it's 40 trillion years. Like,
Right.
what the fuck's the difference?
Well,
Like,
not
how
only
do we
that,
know what they would perceive time and space and energy and what happens in that short little time frame? Like, I've always imagined this. Like, what if we're in just this like little bubble and
right,
like it just hasn't popped yet and we're floating through the fucking
But
air? You've
what's
seen
the
that when your
bubble?
kids blow a fucking bubble, and that
Right.
10 seconds you see that bubble to whatever's inside that bubble might be 40 trillion years.
Yes, exactly. And that's the neat thing about the whole, that's the whole concept of the black hole. You said we understand so much, but we understand so very little truly about what a black hole is. And take it back to the great filter. How do we know that the filter is not itself a black hole? Because they also theorize that we're living, this galaxy, this universe is inside of a black hole, and
that's
we're at the center
widely
of that.
being accepted too.
Right, and that's what's protecting us as life, as the early firstborn steps of life in that black hole. That's what's protecting us from imminent dangers of asteroids, comets, other potential life-threatening.
Civilization.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be that simple. And Phil, you're saying, we're folding the universe itself up and traveling through it and punching a hole in it. When that happens, if we're inside of a black hole, what's to say reality itself isn't bending, melding, changing, melting, and we wouldn't even realize it was happening? So there's so many things that are potential inside of a black hole. If we were being protected by one, but living inside of one, another endless possibility.
If I may, just give me just one moment here. When it comes to black holes, that will actually be, as far as our ancestors are concerned, more or less the solution to heat death. Because if you could, in theory, make a craft or some sort of device, whatever, what have you, that could literally stay right on the event horizon of the black hole, you would experience 1 second of your life. You could live it as a trillion years. Okay. And you could actually go back and forth in time and relive happy memories again and again and again. And you could go back and like meet your ancestors and could go into the future. And you could literally see time not in a linear fashion, but in a circular fashion. And so you could literally, as far as you're concerned, have the next best thing to immortality is you could have a single second of your organic life be lived as if you lived 100 trillion years.
Well, with that, folks, let's jump into.
Well, here, so
like
he's got.
I know.
I love this.
I want to get to Dark Forest.
We are, and that's what I'm leading to here. I've got
okay.
These hypotheses lead into that. So another hypothesis for the Fermi Paradox would be the zoo hypothesis. Advanced civilizations deliberately avoiding contact because...
The Galactic Zoo?
The Galactic Zoo. They're less advanced civilizations, i.e. us, treating us as a zoo, or they're observing us because to them, we're just merely creatures behind bars. There's the technological singularity.
The Truman Show, but
galactic. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we're the Keeping Up with the Kardashians of the universe. The technological singularity of civilizations inevitably creating technologies that destroy themselves or become undetectable to us because they wiped themselves out from existence. And unfortunately, I think that holds a lot of weight just alone here on our own planet. Mind you, if that's the case for life in the billions of years that have allegedly already passed out there, if there's no other life out there, well, sure, it's likely that we're the first or one of the new, but some of the old, if we're not the first.
Or we don't understand what life actually is.
There's that, but also, like, if I may just inject real quick here, that is one of the 9 potential ways that we could actually make what you would call contact with an alien civilization, is us observing their ruins of a dead civilization. That's one of the ways we potentially could.
That's why I didn't hate the movie Mission to Mars, although it did kind of start teetering on flat Earth ideology. But
it started.
I never watched it. I was curious.
It's intriguing. I mean, the concept is, they escaped Mars. Human life escaped Mars and found its way to Earth. But it starts teetering on.
Now I have to watch it. If it goes to flat Earth, I gotta watch it.
Is that the one with Val Kilmer, or is that the one with Andy Dufresne?
No, Andy Dufresne and the other guy in Apollo 13, not Tom Hanks.
Okay. That was a great movie until they killed Andy Dufresne. That was when the whole movie
went off the rails. It's like, I don't know. It was a good movie, but like it started getting into like not flat Earth. Sorry, I mean Scientology. It had a weird Scientology vibe to it.
Yeah,
it got really because I hadn't watched it for a long time, and then I watched it again. I'm like, oh, this feels very Scientology-esque. I don't know, but like it's kind of a cool concept until you're like, oh, now that I know what Scientology is, oh shit. So yeah, the last one I'm going to touch on here for hypothesis would be the solitude hypothesis. Advanced civilizations might have a tendency to isolate themselves from the rest of the universe, either by choice or due to some unknown factor. And the solitude hypothesis really just translates more into the dark forest theory.
Phil,
Gentlemen?
I'm gonna send it to you in just a second here to round us out. I'm gonna say from the smallest stars to the fastest interstellar visitors, we've measured the odds and weighed the silence. The Fermi Paradox leaves us with choices. Life is rare, life is hiding, life is dangerous. The dark forest theory says survival demands silence, that every signal risks our being our very last. And yet, faith tells us the universe was not made to be empty. Maybe it isn't silence we hear, but a patient waiting until the time is right to answer. I send it to Phil, K.O.E. Round us out, brother.
Folks, thank you for being here tonight on Dark Side of the Fringe with Tony G and Chicken, with special guest Phil, K.O.E. And folks, as I'm known to say around here, all that being said, thank you for joining us here at Dark Side of the Fringe for this very special 17th episode, going into all things extraterrestrial, out into space, into deep space, folks, the deepest space possible, the recesses of your mind. Folks, come right back here, Dark Side of the Fringe, for all of the crazy analysis and getting into the deep dives on some of your favorite topics. I am your King of Extreme, Phil, K.O.E. You can, of course, find me at K.O.E Nation on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. That's K as in King, O as in, oh my goodness, you can find K.O.E Nation on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. E as in, I am extremely happy to know that I can find K.O.E Nation on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. And folks, I am so happy to be here, and I am signing off and handing it off to these indomitable broadcast partners. Gentlemen, take it away.
All yours, Tony.
This was a blast, and I love the discussion. This was fantastic, and everybody who made it this far.
It was fun.
Which would be everybody who listens to this, because if you didn't make it this far, that's your loss, not ours.
And you're an
I would
asshole.
assume, yeah, you're an asshole if you didn't. So if you didn't, you won't hear this. But F you too. But of course you did, because you're all cool, and everybody listening to the show is cool, and you'll listen next week because you're also cool. So it's another home run show, folks. It's what we do here, Dark Side of the Fringe. Thanks for joining us. Catch you for the next one.